Okay. Hey, friends. Let's start this thing with some prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity, Lord. I pray that your words flow through me and your glory be seen in my story as I tell the wonders you have done in my life. Come, Holy Spirit, and fill this room. Let these words be used for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Hi, friends. My name is Victoria, and I'm a grateful Christian in recovery from drugs and alcohol. Hi. My sobriety date is 5/6/2016, and I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. And I also have a CA, Cocaine Anonymous home group, Straight with No Chaser, that meets Monday night at 8 p.m. at the Central Campus. I want to start off by saying this is not my testimony, but God's. He did for me what I could never do for myself. The 12 steps allowed him to work in my life. I am physically and mentally different than my fellows, and I strive to fit in wherever I went and wanted to feel loved. So I did any drug that was put in front of me so I could feel a sense of escape from the present world. I didn't like the way I felt sober, so I never really had a drug of choice. I did whatever you had so I didn't have to face the reality of my life. So this is what my life was like. I was born in Picayune, Mississippi, October 2nd, 1987. I was put up for adoption at 17 months. I have a biological older sister and a brother who was 1 year and 4 days younger than me. My adopted mom told me that my mom was a drug addict who liked to party, and she didn't know who my father was. I now know that she was an addict. I was told that me and my younger brother were left alone in the mobile home for a few days. The neighbor heard us crying, kicked in the door, and called the police. My younger brother and I got put into an orphanage where I was adopted, and my younger brother's dad took him in. My adopted parents were in their late 40s and had one daughter already. A few years later, they adopted my younger sister from a different family. When I was 5 years old, my adopted father passed away and had a heart attack, leaving my mom to take care of two little kids under the age of 5. I was diagnosed with bipolar and ADD at a young age and was put on lithium and Ritalin. I was a very antisocial child because of the meds. I don't remember a lot about my childhood, not sure if it was because of the meds. I do remember me wanting to be liked and to please people. I took $20 out of my mom's wallet and bought my whole class pencils. If my mom told me to do something, I did the opposite. Being left alone a lot as a baby with my brother left me to take care of us, so I was used to doing things by myself. So it was hard for me to ask for help. I usually have to figure things out on my own. I still have a problem with this, but with God, I'm walking through it. We moved to Jacksonville, Florida in 2000, and the next year, my mom told me she was sending me to a troubled teens home called Camp Tracy in North Florida. I didn't think I was a bad child, so I didn't understand why she was sending me there. This program was for a minimum of a year, and some of the girls were court-ordered there. My first month was the hardest. They immediately took me off my bipolar and ADD medication. I wasn't allowed to talk, and I had to stay by this girl's side all the time. I would lie in my bed at night and cry, looking at pictures of my mom and sisters, wondering why they don't want me around anymore. That was the worst feeling I've ever felt, and I never want to experience it again. I actually did a lot of things in my life to make sure that I never experienced that hurt again. I felt as if no one ever wanted me and I wasn't good enough. My birth mom didn't want me, and now my adopted mom is sending me away. What was wrong with me? I felt all alone in this world. I am now forced to take care of myself again. At camp, we only left the property to go to church, and we went to church every Sunday and Wednesday. We even went to school on the property. I did well in school there. You weren't allowed to make anything lower than a B. If you did, you had to take the course over. So I graduated with AB honor roll. I'm sure if I was in regular school, that probably wouldn't happen. I have ADD, and I don't do well sitting in class. I fidget a lot, and my coworkers are annoyed by me in meetings. Let's just say that. So we had devotionals every night. They taught me about God and the Bible. They planted the seed in my life that it became the relationship I have with God today. I was baptized a couple times, but honestly, though, I only did it because I wanted to fraternize with the boys. See, the boys were on the other side of the church, and we were on the back side. So if we came to get baptized, we were in the front, and everybody could see us, and I could see the boys over here on the side view, you know. Uh, I never felt good about myself unless someone was giving me attention. The boys lived on the property 2 miles away, and we only seen them at church. You were not allowed to talk to them or look at them. If you got caught, you would be punished, either spanked with a paddle or you had to run laps. That didn't stop me. I got in trouble a few times trying to talk to them and pass notes. We had pigs and cows, and we would kill them for our food. We planted and harvested our own crops. The girls would cook for all the staff and boys, which was about 100 people. Like I said, most girls stayed a minimum of a year. I stayed for 5. My mom would visit me on Sunday at church, and after 1 year, I could go home to visit with her once a week. In 2006, I was 18 already, and about to graduate. My friend Bobby and her mom, Shelly, came from graduation. Bobby was in the program with me. Her mom asked me why I was still there, as I was 18 and about to graduate. She asked if I wanted to leave and come back to Cape Coral with them, but I told them no. So I started asking my mom if I could come home. She told me she wasn't ready for me to come home. I later found out she was paying them extra money to keep me there, and I felt like she didn't want me to come home. Later that year, I snuck to use a phone. So it was probably about a couple weeks later, I snuck to use a phone and called Shelly, because she had given me her number. I called her to come get me, and they drove up that weekend with the cops in case they didn't want me to leave. My mom didn't know I was leaving until I got to Cape Coral, and then I called and told her. Now living in Lee County, I was free to do whatever I wanted, and I wasn't used to that. I was very sheltered in this program. I couldn't wear jeans, eyeliner, you had to wear pantyhose with everything, you had to wear your hair a certain way, so I was very sheltered. So I got my first job at Big Lots, and I started dating an older brother, which is Shelly's brother. An older guy, which was Shelly's brother. He was in a band, so I started going out to the bars and smoking cigarettes just to try to fit in. I wasn't even inhaling them. I just saw everyone else doing it, so I tried it and wanted to as well. At this time, I was introduced to cocaine, and I was doing it occasionally. Of course, the relationship failed. And then I met Lisa at Hess, and she said I was a perfect fit for her son. So we hooked up, and I moved in with him on the first night that I met him. We did a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs. He introduced me to meth, and I started smoking it. We did a lot of fighting. At one point, he broke my nose and broke the windows out in my car, but I always went back to him. I was looking for that unconditional love. I thought even if he beat me, at least he wanted me around. I eventually got a restraining order on him. That's how I got away. I bounced around for a while, staying place to place, working at different jobs, but it never lasts long because I'd always party every night and couldn't make it to work. Lisa let me stay with her because I had nowhere to go and I had been kicked out of every place I stayed, and she also gave me a job at her store. I did well for a while. I was maintaining my party life and my work life, or so I thought. Then I got involved into IV using my drugs. From then on, my life revolved around getting high. I started stealing money and cigarettes from the store I worked at. Eventually, it got back to Lisa that I was stealing from the store, and she asked me to resign. At this point, I had no income for drugs, and a guy said, "Hey, why don't we post you on Backpage?" So if you don't know what Backpage is, it was a website back in the day where women would go and post on there to sell themselves. I made fast money, and I would split it with this guy that I was with because he would take me on my dates. He became my bodyguard. And it was 50-50. Eventually, it became not 50-50 anymore. He would take all my money and give me drugs as he wanted to. It became a trafficking situation. This went on for a while until one day he beat me pretty bad, and I got away, but I didn't stay away. He apologized, and I went back to him. I was looking for that love. Eventually, he got a new girl, and I became old news. Now I was a street prostitute, so I was left to survive on the streets alone. It was sink or swim, so I learned to swim pretty quickly to keep up with my drug habit. I wasn't going to stop using drugs, right? I was IV using meth, heroin, and crack at this point, or pretty much whatever you made me forget and feel good. I ran the streets in North Fort Myers for a few years, where I was in and out of jail for multiple prostitution charges and in and out of detox. I was well known by the cops. Eventually, I met a guy, and he brought me over to Fort Myers to make money. and I split the money with him as well. This lasted a few months until I was pushed out of a car and hit Hanson Street face first. I had bit through my lower lip and was bleeding everywhere. I went to the hospital, not because I thought that I needed help. My friend would sit in the parking lot and wait for me. So that's the only reason I went to the hospital. Of course, I went and got my drugs before I went to the hospital. And they told me I was 8 weeks pregnant with my son, Caden. I needed to do something different, so I decided to go to detox, and I followed through. A week later, I went into detox. My mom kept telling me to abort the baby because I couldn't stay clean in the past. I had no intentions of staying in detox because I didn't think that I had a problem. I just wanted to not use so many drugs. I thought drugs were my problem. I told this guy when he dropped me off that I'd probably show up at his house later, but I didn't. And here I stand 5 years later. God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. I stayed there, and I went to the TLC 28-day program right after. I had never done any type of program. If I completed detox, I was usually back out in the same situation. In TLC, I finally realized that I had a problem and that I couldn't do it alone. My counselor really helped me. As I mentioned before, I have trouble asking for help. She would have me come and ask her if I wanted anything, because at first I was just slipping her notes under the door. I almost got kicked out for fighting and, of course, messing with the boys. I always looked for men for validation. The more I met with my counselor, the more I felt good about myself. TLC taught me about my addiction. I had no concept of it. This was my first time actually trying to get sober. I didn't think people actually got sober. I thought they died an alcoholic or drug addict death, and I was okay with that. I had never worked a program. These steps that were hanging on the wall, they looked like Chinese to me. I didn't even know what they said. I didn't understand them. She told me that I should probably start attending this group for sexually exploited and trafficked women. So when I got out of the 28-day program, and out of TLC's halfway house, I started going into that trafficking group on Tuesday night. There I learned that I was a victim of trafficking. I always thought that trafficking was for girls that had been sold against their will, and I had just gotten involved with a pimp. But I learned there are different ways you can be trafficked, and that was one of them. I'm extremely grateful that God put that group in my life. They have a skills group that I attend every week that has taught me about trauma and walking out of that life. They gave me an opportunity to better myself. I started working at Jimmy John's in August of 2016. It was like my first job in a very, very long time. I had to get back into society and learn how to be an adult, because up to this point, I had no real responsibilities. I didn't care if I even had a place to sleep. I could always find one. But now I was about to have a baby. I was told a lot of suggestions. It took a while for the fog to lift. I didn't take the suggestions right away. I was told to get a sponsor. I did. We didn't connect, so I got another one. I was getting closer to having the baby, and I couldn't have the baby at halfway. So a month before Caden was born, my women's group told me they were opening up a transitional living house and asked if I wanted to move in with the baby. I was going to NAMI at Lee Memorial Hospital, and my friend told me I should check out Celebrate Recovery, which is now Choose Recovery, at Grace Central. And I was already going to church there on Sunday, so I agreed. I was hesitant at first because I don't like change. I'd always thought that if I changed anything I was doing, everything would fall apart. I was afraid of losing everything. I would even do my hair the same way every day, just in case somehow I would ruin the good thing I had going on, because that's what I always did. But I took a chance and I came. Here I learned that I'm not only powerless over alcohol, but I'm also powerless over my actions and tendencies to do the wrong thing. I didn't just have a problem with drugs, I have a problem with myself. Drugs were just a symptom of what was going on, because I tried to fill that hole with everything, but nothing ever completed me. I thank God that I found this church. I had gone to church a few times when I was using, but I stopped going because people would judge me there. I was the girl nodding out and dressed inappropriately, but when I came to church, I didn't feel judged, I felt loved. I met God in these steps. I would pray foxhole prayers in addiction. God, please don't let me go to jail, and if I did go to jail, I must have displeased God. But working these steps and continuing my daily walk with God, I learned that He isn't a revengeful God. He wants the best for me in my life. And just like the prodigal son, He was there with open arms when I came running back to Him. He dressed me in the finest linen and he got the fattened calf because his wayward child had finally come home. The steps show me that drugs and alcohol are only a symptom. I suffer from many character defects, and once I take away those substances, I am left with the real me, and I am full of ego, pride, selfishness, codependency, sexual addiction, and playing God. I am free of these by working the steps and letting God work in my life. And letting God be God, not me. I couldn't even run my own life. How can I run somebody else's? In steps 4 and 5, I actually feel like I belong somewhere. I wasn't judged for my mistakes, but I feel loved. I can finally look the world in the eye. I realize that my feelings aren't facts and that I'm not the victim. I can see my part in situations now. There is a story I heard that defines an alcoholic perfectly. There were two guys busted for drinking and driving. They were both sitting in jail. The one says, I shouldn't have drank so much. And the other, the alcoholic like myself, says, well, I shouldn't have taken that road. That is the type of alcoholic I am. I never learn from my mistakes. I would just take a different street the next time so I don't get caught. The AA Big Book tells me that I am bodily and mentally different than my fellows and defines an addict and alcoholic in 2 ways. If I pick up a substance and have no control over how much I consume, I am an addict and alcoholic. When I do stop and I can't stay stopped, then I suffer from this disease and it's trying to kill me. Alcoholism and addiction is like a double-edged sword. When I put the substance in my body, I can't stop. But the logical answer is, right, don't pick up the first one. But I always pick up the first one, no matter what. And that is the second and deadliest part, that even if I put it down, I have a mental obsession and I will always pick it back up, even after spending months in jail. I go straight to the dope man's house as soon as I'm released. Not because I am dope sick, because I can't stand being sober and don't want to feel, so I start that cycle all over again. I find freedom in these steps and through my higher power, which is Jesus. A great friend used to say, he has recently passed away, that I invite you to take a walk with God and he'll meet you at the steps. I am never cured of this disease, but what I have is contingent based on my spiritual program. My reliance upon God, which I connect with every morning when I do my morning meditation. And in the evening, when I review my day, I can see where I fell short and make right the wrongs I have done. I am not perfect, but willing to grow along spiritual lines. 5 years ago, I was a shell of a person. I wasn't living, nor did I want to. I was okay dying an alcoholic death and didn't see a way out. God brought me through the lowest parts of my life so I could be of service to the next woman that walks through these doors, hurting and broken. The third step prayer says, take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. The 12th step is where I get to share that spiritual experience with other ladies, and watching them recover is a bright spot in my life today. I have a purpose for living, and that is because of the 12 steps and what God has done in my life. The Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and Dr. Bob's Nightmare says, I spend a great deal of time passing on what I learned to others who want it and need it badly. I do it for 4 reasons. 1 is a sense of duty. 2, it is a pleasure. 3, because in doing so, I'm paying my debt to the man who took the time to pass it on to me. And 4, because of every time I do it, I take out a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip. In the spiritual experience section, it says, he finally realizes that he has undergone a profound alteration in his reaction to life, that such a change could hardly have been brought on by himself alone. I would like to leave you with my life verse, John 16:33. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you will have tribulations, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Jesus is saying that we will have troubles in the world and hardships, but he has overcome our troubles, and that no matter what we go through, he will never leave us nor forsake us. God became human and went through the same trials we did, and through him we can recover from our addictions, conflictions, and compulsive behaviors. Thank you. I'll get my sword back.